Good morning and welcome to Madeira. If you're new around here, hi, I'm Caroline and I'm travelling around this gorgeous island with my partner Andy for a couple of weeks. This morning we've come along to Pico Arieiro for a sunrise and we will be setting off on a hike across to Pico Ruivo, which is the highest peak in Madeira. Distance-wise, the hike is only 6.1 kilometres out and then another 6.1 kilometres back to where we've parked the car, but it is supposed to be one of the most strenuous hikes on the island because there's an awful lot of ups and downs. The first viewpoint that we've come across on the hike is called Ninho da Manta. I can't believe we're just like, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes into this hike and it's already getting so hot. I wouldn't even say that it's 9 AM. The boards also said that we needed to make sure that we were bringing plenty of layers, as well as things like food, water, and that our fitness levels were up. So I don't feel like this fleece is a waste because you never know in the mountains the weather could turn, but I can't see myself putting it back on for the rest of this hike. First impressions on the hike is that the microclimate up here is so completely different to all of the levadas that we'd been doing earlier on in this trip. Down there it was a really lush, green, really brightly coloured plants, and I think it's just because of the amount of moisture that they get, and then of course the amount of coverage that stops that moisture from just being evaporated by direct sunlight. Whereas up here it feels a lot more desert-like and the plants are a lot more dry and drought tolerant in comparison, and loads of plants that we've not been seeing so far. We've just passed Pedra Rija and there's been some kind of funky bird. It's had 3 little babies with it and I would not have expected to see those things on this massive. I cannot remember the last time I was able to put on sunscreen with such a gorgeous view before. But it's what, probably about 9:30 right now, and we figure that the sun will just be getting stronger as the day goes on. And because this is very, very exposed from a sunlight point of view in comparison to a lot of the levada walks that we've done, I can just see us burning to an absolute crisp if we don't get some sunscreen on now and then we don't top up as we keep on going. So we've just found this shaded spot here just to do what's necessary when you're trying to avoid skin cancer. We've reached our first tunnel. It's relatively short and you can definitely see daylight out on the other side, so a flashlight probably isn't needed quite as much as on the levada ones, because of course the other thing is that there's no levada to accidentally stumble into. Just as we've come out of that tunnel, we've had 3 hikers pass us in the opposite direction, absolutely puffing and panting away. So I'm thinking that when we come back and the heat of the day is fully out, I think that tunnel is probably going to be blissful to be walking through because it was lovely and cold just now.
That's going to be horrible to get up later.
I've got a sneaking suspicion that the reason why those people were absolutely puffing and panting trying to get into the tunnel is because they'd just done this staircase. We've hiked 2.2 kilometres and we've still got 3.9 to go. This trail has definitely got very steep drop-offs in some sense, I think because of the slightly more orange rock and then the greenery of all of the plants. It's reminding me a lot of Angel's Landing in Zion or Zion National Park in the States. But I think what makes it really different is that that just had no safety railings, and the fact that this hike does just doesn't make it scary at all. This is the second tunnel, and oh my goodness, the breeze that is blowing out of here is something akin to what you'd expect when you open the fridge in the kitchen on a heat wave of a day, but it turns around a corner really quickly. So I'm thinking, oh, it's stuck in there. I'm thinking it's flashlight time.
It's so cold.
Wow, this view is pretty spectacular. You can see the trail going all the way up, and then there's another tunnel, so I'm just gonna turn that off because there's not really much point in me putting it away. But I have to confess that as beautiful as this view is, I still think if there was an award for the best, like coming out of a tunnel to see something, it still has to go to the Levada Nova, because that waterfall in itself was so unique. I've never seen one like it before. It was just the fact that you had no idea it was coming, and then the tunnel just spat you out onto it. We've seen some more of those birds, and this time it was a whole family of them, both mum, dad, and way more babies than the last lot that we saw. As I was crouched down just filming them, a tour guide then came with his group, and I don't think at first he realised what I was filming, and he's like, excuse me. I was like, please just bear with me a second, because I knew that obviously if they walked on, they would have scared away all of the birds. And then as soon as the guide realised what I was filming, he was like, oh, okay, don't worry. He said, yes, it's breeding season at the moment. So, oh, this guy knows his stuff. I'll ask him, do you know what kind of birds they are? And he said, yes, they're partridges. Never would have known. Couple of really short tunnels now coming up, and a question for everyone who's watching this. I understand why there are tunnels built along the Levadas, because the maintenance workers need access to the Levadas via the pathways, and obviously they have to go through tunnels, and the Levadas of course have to go through tunnels too. But why does this hike have tunnels? Because to me it doesn't quite make sense. Like, is it just for hikers? If so, thank you very much, Madeira.
So the peak that we're hiking is just come into view, and it's that one.
Where does the path go?
Down. Gotta go down to go up.
Not quite 11 Z's because it is 10:30 Z's, but in fairness we were up at 5:15 Z's, so we feel like we need a bit of a sugar kick. So I think we're gonna dig into just a little bit of fruit just to help give us a bit more energy to see us through. We reckon we're about 2/3 of the way through the hike, and I cannot get my bag around because I'm sat on the strap. Yeah, we reckon we're about 2/3 of the way along the hike, but time-wise it's probably more like halfway, just because the next part has got a very steep incline. Cheers. Snack time is very much over. We want to keep on going with this hike before it gets any hotter than what it is right now. We've got to a point where our path converges with one that's technically speaking now closed, although they definitely need to update the information boards at the start, because they're like, you have an option, but you don't. And the sign's saying that it's now 2.4 kilometres, and I think we've now got an elevation descent of about 100 metres, and then it's going to be back up. 400 metres back up. Stuff that we read online described them as ladders, but I'd say it's a bit more like a staircase. And you couldn't write this the second we come out of the shadow. It's all uphill now. This section just here has been absolutely brutal to come up. But I think Mother Nature's just been looking out for hikers and said, I appreciate that this is going to be really difficult. And the amount of just wild flowers that are either side, it's almost like someone's come along and purposefully planted them. Obviously no one has the effort to come and do that, but it's pretty. The butterflies were far too zippy, but lots and lots of butterflies and moths as well flying in all of this. But I have no idea how high we've gone up. It's really difficult to tell, but like mentally, I'm just like, it's only 50 meters out of the 400, because then if we've done more, it feels better. Oh, we've just got to the top of an incredibly brutal section. There's a couple that are going back down in the other direction, and they said that that was the worst part. I don't know if they're just saying that to be nice, but we've come up onto like a little ridge. The wind's really picked up, which is lovely and cooling me down, but unfortunately the path's going to go back down on the other side, so we've gained elevation only just to drop it again. We'll keep on going. I've just gone and heard a French person like yelling back to their friend. I don't really know that much French, but I do understand fermé, and I was like, that means closed. Is there something closed up ahead? But then he started pointing this way, and what I've realised is this must be a really, really old trail. This is completely overgrown and it's not an option on the map.
It's hot.
Yeah, now that we've come over that little ridgeway, we are fully exposed in the sun. But as Andy's quite rightly pointed out, there must have been a wildfire here at some point, because the trees are dead.
Yes.
But like white, you know, it's not like black burnt. I think it was quite some time ago. Yeah. But we've also been able to look up the hill or look up the mountain. And what kind of path is it?
Zigzag switchbacks.
Yes, no more ladders, no more staircases from hell.
Or heaven.
Well, it would be staircase to heaven.
True.
I suppose, yeah, we've been coming up staircase to heaven. It's just when we go back on ourselves.
To hell.
Staircase to hell. We've had a good pace going, just very slow and very steady. But these trousers were a big mistake. Whose idea was it to put on trousers?
Yours.
Yeah, you're in shorts. Why didn't I not get the memo? I just assumed because we were like up on a mountaintop that when we were up here it was going to be really, really chilly, because in the UK that's generally the case. Top tip, if you come in to hike this hike in the summer, I wouldn't bother with the trousers, and I even think at sunrise shorts would have been fine too. We've got to the point on the trail where our path is now merged with one that is an arguably easier one. The sign on here is saying that it's 2.3 kilometers to Achada do... I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the name. I'm just going to pop it up here. But yeah, 2.3 kilometers. And so this can be an easier way to get up to the top of Pico Ruivo. The other thing is that we ended up getting pace going with this other British couple, having a lot of chats with. We like shared our sunscreen with them. One of them is a teacher like me, so of course we're going to bond. I think like teachers just magnetize and fight one another. But they have ended up going on this hike because they're doing an all-inclusive package holiday through Jet2 Holidays, and they've paid €45 each. And what that's allowed them to do is to get dropped off where we started the hike, but instead of having to hike all the way back there, once they've gone up and done Pico Ruivo, they're just going to come back down here and have the much shorter 2.3 kilometer hike, whereas we've got the 5.6 kilometer hike on paths that are familiar to ourselves. We've decided to just bypass the rest stop. It seems to have a cafe. They definitely look to be like bistro tables outside of it.
Yep.
And they also had a water refilling station, so you've gone through a lot.
Yep, and they had a barbecue.
Of course, seems like they have them everywhere here.
And there was a toilet.
Oh yes, but we just figured since we've got our sort of pace going, let's get up to the peak and then either we'll have lunch at the peak if it's an amazing view, or I guess we'll have...
Yeah, we'll eat back down there.
Yeah, back down at the little lodge. One of the great things about being up on the highest peak here in Madeira is you can start to look out and be like, oh, we've been there and we've been there, because we realised that the valley down there is the PR1 Vereda hike that we did yesterday. And then if I look out straight west from where I am at the moment, you've got all of the windmills, and that's where we were at the sunrise point yesterday morning. And top tip, if you want to have an epic sunrise with the cloud inversion and you're way up on the mountains but you don't want the hundreds of other people that we had this morning at Pico Arieiro, I would highly recommend going over to that Bica da Cana over by those windmills, because we were the only ones there for the entire time. We've made it to the top of Pico Ruivo, which is the highest peak here in Madeira. And true to everything that I read, when you look out on the north, it is just a sea of clouds. But on the south side of the island, it's beautiful blue skies. And I guess that's why a lot of people who like the package holidays do prefer to stay on the south coast. You've also got views back onto Pico Arieiro, which is where we started the hike, and honestly, the way in which the bird flies, it really doesn't look like we've travelled much distance at all. But you've obviously got to appreciate that we've done a huge dip down and then back up. It's very, very busy up here, but there's a lovely breeze coming in, particularly from the east. So we're gonna stop, have something to eat, and then we'll make our way back towards the parking lot where we started. We've descended now, we've gone past the hut, I filled up with some water there. I did not bother to stand in the epic queue either for the toilets or the epic queue to get any kind of drinks from the hut, even though they do seem to sell them. And because we're obviously going back the exact same way that we came, it's going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to wrap this up now, and hopefully we will see you guys next time. Bye bye.